Is it hard enough? All right. We were just talking about biofuel and renewable energy over here, gentlemen. I don't know if you have anything to share with us about that, but not a far cry from talking about construction, though. Forest products industry. So, good morning, and thank you for joining us. I look forward to having a good conversation here about the future of the construction industry and how we might be able to make some necessary improvements. I think we all know that America's infrastructure needs some pretty focused investment in order to catch up to where we should be. Everyone knows the statistics from the American Society of Civil Engineers, both nationally and in their specific home states, lays out a clear map for improvement and where we're falling behind. This is one reason why there needs to be a strong infrastructure agenda in Congress, and in particular one that focuses on investing in outdated roads, bridges, rails, water systems, housing. We could go on and on. Doing this not only increases opportunities for small businesses in construction, manufacturing, engineering, and many more small businesses, but it also will help create good paying job opportunities and increase our competitiveness as a nation. The current administration, I think, shares this understanding that we need to invest in our infrastructure and that this should be a top priority as well, I think, as both parties in Congress. So really it's, sometimes we're not sure what's holding us back, right, Pete? But we need to continue to have these conversations and be pushing our leadership to go ahead and move forward with an infrastructure spending package. Not just roads and bridges. We need a comprehensive infrastructure package that incorporates information technology and communications so that our nation not only has the fastest and most efficient infrastructure, but also the most modern. With the internet, things like artificial intelligence and cloud computing offer new opportunities for smart applications in many new industries and old. In particular, technology has the ability to reshape the construction industry by creating digital construction solutions where small firms can help lead the way. From GPS-enabled equipment to advanced digital modeling, smart tools are making projects less expensive, more eco-friendly, and more efficient. More importantly, digital construction helps level the playing field for small contractors. Through investing in digital tools, small businesses can write lower bids and compete for larger projects. Smart tools also pay for themselves. Increased business and timelier project completion allow small contractors to bring in more business. Early adoption of digital technologies creates a competitive advantage. In fact, almost 70% of owners say poor performance is the single biggest reason for project underperformance, and only 25% of projects have come within 10% of their original deadline in the past 3 years. Digital tools also give contractors access to powerful data that can help them make informed decisions about materials and design to make structures safer. Smart buildings enabled by digital tools help civil engineers, developers, and architects reduce a building's carbon footprint and increase sustainability. Inspecting structures like bridges and tall buildings was once a dangerous, time-consuming task. Now, PropTech sensors are built into buildings that can help assess when there is damage and when buildings need to have some maintenance. Drones also offer a way to survey buildings and terrain after natural disasters. Just one example. These cutting-edge solutions cut costs and save lives. I hope that today's discussion will help shed a little light on the many ways that digital construction can benefit small businesses and encourage broader adoption of digital tools. I want to thank each of the witnesses for joining us today and look forward to your testimony. And I would now yield to the ranking member, Mr. Stauber, for an opening statement.
Thank you, Chair Goldman, and thank you for holding this important hearing, and it's a pleasure to work with you on this committee. On our modern-day work sites, you might see a worker studying a 3D printed model instead of blueprints, or remotely operating an autonomous crane in the safety of an office. Stakeholders might prefer a virtual reality or aerial tour instead of physically touring the project. No longer limited to R&D engineers, construction workers at all levels are harnessing digital technologies to optimize productivity, quality, and safety. These technologies have brought the worksite into the hands of its operators. Smartphone apps can not only link employees to each other, but also enable access to vital project data stored in the cloud. The data may be sourced by drones, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and 3D modeling. Digitized construction technologies and processes can have a significant impact on a construction company's productivity, but many small firms lack the resources to invest and maximize potential of these technologies. Similarly, regulatory and administrative burdens have restricted implementation across federal, state, and local agencies. Without greater usage by small business and government agencies, no infrastructure modernization strategy will meet our nation's needs. As Congress continues to work on infrastructure modernization legislation, including the Surface Transportation Reauthorization and WRDA, we must focus on facilitating a regulatory environment that allows for new technologies to be deployed in the field. These reauthorizations usually are a fairly long-term 5-year authorizations. Technology is changing so rapidly that we risk falling behind if we are too technology prescriptive in legislating. We have the opportunity to empower small businesses to lead the charge on modern construction technologies, a charge that will lower costs, increase sustainability, increase productivity, and being more efficient, allow more projects to be built and maintained with less money. For example, in my home state of Minnesota, the Department of Transportation is pioneering the use of drones to inspect over 13,358 bridges. They have also developed robust life cycle cost analysis standards and practices and are working with industry partners to prepare Minnesota for an autonomous vehicle future. By going high-tech, the state will maximize every dollar of infrastructure investment. In addition to this committee, I serve on the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. It is incumbent upon these two committees to take steps towards investing in a technology-forward infrastructure plan and ensure that small businesses are positioned to help in its execution. Thank you to our witnesses for being here today, and Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Thank you very much. I don't know how often the four of you have sat in front of committees here in Congress, so I'll quickly go over some of the rules around timing. Each of you will get 5 minutes to testify. Members will get 5 minutes for questions as well. There's a lighting system in front of you. Green light will be on when you begin, and the yellow light will give you a 1-minute warning while you're reading through your opening remarks. Red light comes on when you're out of time, and we'd ask that you try and stay as best you can within that time frame. I would now like to introduce our first witness. Mr. Anderson is an architect with a degree in engineering from Sweden and a master's in architecture from Savannah College of Art and Design. With over 20 years of experience, he has applied virtual design, construction, and operation methodologies on a wide variety of building typologies. He is the director of VDCO at the Lero, I get that right? Lero Group, and teaches at Pratt Institute in New York, where he is leading a collaborative BIM studio between architects, construction, and facilities managers. Welcome, Mr. Anderson. Our next witness is Mr. Ryan Forstell, president at Cold Spring Construction Company based in Akron, New York. I was about to say Ohio there. I got that wrong. Cold Spring Construction was founded 108 years ago by Mr. Forstell's great-grandfather and has completed numerous large and small-scale projects across New York. He is also a co-chair of the Fair Apportionment of Infrastructure Committee of West New York, a nonpartisan advocacy organization whose primary goal is to ensure that Western and Upstate New York receives their fair share of transportation funds distributed by the state of New York. He has earned a bachelor's degree in biology and biomedical sciences from Brown University and a master's degree in civil engineering from Penn State University. Thank you for joining us today, sir. Our third witness is Mr. Shepard, Vice President of the Construction Solutions Group at Trimble. Trimble is a company whose mission is to transform the way the world works by delivering products and services that connect the physical and digital worlds. He has been a part of the executive team at Trimble for the for the past 20 years and has worked in 30 countries on 6 continents and managed more than 3,000 employees. Before Trimble, Mr. Shepard served Copeland and Booz Allen Hamilton, helping clients solve strategic problems all over the world. He holds a BA in Business Studies with a foreign language from the Manchester Metropolitan University and a master's degree in management from Northwestern University. Welcome, Mr. Shepard. Thank you for joining us. And I would now yield to our full committee ranking member. No, I would not. I'm sorry about that. I will. Do you have the introduction prepared? Wonderful. I'll yield to ranking member Mr. Stauber for introducing our final witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our final witness is Philip Ogilvie. Mr. Ogilvie, I was going to refer this to Ranking Member Shabbat to introduce you, but since he's not here, you'll have to take this Minnesotan's word for it. Mr. Ogilvie is the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of Stack Construction Technologies. Founded and headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio, Stack Construction Technologies is a leading cloud-based pre-construction collaboration platform. After a decade owning a construction company, Mr. Ogilvie entered the construction tech industry with his son, Justin, who was only 14 years old at the time. Using Justin's coding skills and Phil's entrepreneurial spirit, the father-son team have created multiple construction technologies and startups since 1995. With a 262% three-year growth rate. I want to repeat that. With a 262% three-year growth rate, Stack is one of the nation's fastest-growing private companies. Thank you for coming here to represent high-tech family business and the innovative spirit of Cincinnati.
Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us. We'll go ahead and do our opening statements, and we would start with Mr. Anderson. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Talk here. Thank you very much, Chairman Golden, Ranking Member Stauber, and members of the subcommittee. And thank you very much for inviting me here. As I said, my name is Lennart Anderson. I lived in New York City now for 20 years. I originally come from Sweden, and I've been working in the infrastructure sector in New York City for these 20 years. And I'm appearing here today on behalf of the American Society of Civil Engineers and representing the 150,000 members. ACSC is the nation's oldest national engineering society. And it's a construction industry I'm representing as well, and it has provided leadership in vision and problem-solving skills for construction design professionals for the past 20 years. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today to discuss the smart construction and increasing opportunities for small businesses. ASCE is eager to work with Congress to find ways to improve project delivery at all stages, including planning, funding, design, construction, operations, maintenance, and decommissioning on projects. All phases of construction are poised to change and evolve in the coming years, incorporating traditional tools of the trade and new technologies that could transform the way projects are completed. The industry has a lot to gain from these new and innovative technologies so that we can build better buildings and infrastructure and communities. Today's construction design can be slow to adapt to change and incorporate technology because of the complexity and long duration of projects. In 2017, the McKinsey Global Institute released a report that stated that the efficiency of architecture, engineering, and construction, often called AEC, the efficiency dropped 26% since 1991 to 2017, while the average non-AEC business in the United States increased its efficiency by 48%. That's actually a 100% difference. So the tools and processes used in infrastructure construction are still largely analog and manual. And if properly implemented, the very latest technology will enable the construction industry to achieve higher quality results. And on projects in New York City, we've been testing the very latest, and we actually start seeing that you are achieving much better results. The virtual design and construction not only creates a simulation of the project, but as a part of the construction process, it helps to create budgets and schedules as projects go through funding approval and access a single repository for all project scope and design documentation. It simplifies owner-engineer collaboration through interactive processes and manages iteration of the project's budget, schedule, and design. And it creates detailed estimates and schedules by managing documents, changes, and forecasts, and drives field productivity from anywhere with mobile solutions. Virtual design and construction also enables access to a single searchable repository for as-designed or as-built information to facilitate construction, maintenance, and operation activities. Just one example is ESAT Access, a new station underneath Grand Central Terminal in the United States, in New York City, where I've been involved for the last 7 years. And it's the largest infrastructure project in the United States. And we had 4 people modeling the whole project. It's 6 miles, 125 complex models. It was documented the traditional way, so over 100,000 drawings. And so we were able to actually create a model that everybody can see the complexity. By applying automated reality capture and digitization of the documentation processes and common sense standards, it is possible to realize the digital twin of infrastructure before construction. This model is used for planning, augmented design, for all the stakeholders through an interactive interface. The digital copy is also used for traffic simulation, virtual mock-ups, staging, planning, construction phasing, site safety analysis, as well as community outreach, which also help accelerate decision-making and optimized execution. BIM increases transparency and fosters an environment of participation for all stakeholders. This method of virtual design sets the stage for a more collaborative form of project delivery method. BIM also coincides with lean construction and public-private partnership projects where timely coordination and accurate information is paramount. So we have an opportunity to use small businesses as change makers of infrastructure. Innovation is often more difficult to implement on larger organizations, while small businesses are inherently forced to innovate in order to be competitive. So AAC looks forward to working with the House Committee on Small Businesses and Congress to find ways to improve America's built environment so that every family, community, and business can thrive. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, and we look forward to getting a little more out of your testimony through the Q&A
Sure.
Phase of things.
Thank you.
Mr. Forstill will now recognize you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Golden and Ranking Member Stauber. My name is Ryan Forstell, and I'm the president of Cold Spring Construction. We're a fourth-generation family business based in Akron, New York, outside of Buffalo. We've been performing civil and heavy highway construction projects in the western half of New York State and northwestern Pennsylvania since Cold Spring was founded in 1911 by my great-grandfather. We employ about 120 people in our peak season, and as a family business, we're not just a family in terms of the long-term establishment and operation of the business, but we're a family business in terms of the families that we employ. We have multiple members of many families working for our business, and we treat our people like family. We care about them like family. We wouldn't have the success that we have without them. So things like today are very important to us to continue that success and to do everything that we can to take care of those people and our families. We've done projects ranging in size from a few $100,000 to $130 million. Large projects relative to the size of our company. That's one of the things that we focus on in terms of developing our people to be able to do that and leveraging technology and other resources so that we're able to compete at those kinds of levels. One of the things that we've invested in the last 15 to 20 years is technology related to digital models and automated machine guidance. These technologies have allowed Cold Spring to handle projects that would have been difficult or impossible without the utilization of these technologies. In addition, we've been able to complete these projects more accurately and on tighter schedules than if we'd not been using these technologies. And this has been something that we've seen over the last 10 years with greater frequency, that we've been able to hit schedules or exceed schedules pretty dramatically. And this is largely contributed to by the use of technology. I've heard arguments from other contractors over the years that implementation of digital technologies, as was alluded to earlier, is too expensive and it's just for large corporations. It's too expensive for smaller businesses not to invest in these technologies. When we're seeing increases in efficiency of 20% or many times that in some instances, businesses that don't make these investments won't survive. And I think, as we're going to talk here today, it's important that these technologies are not only allowed but encouraged, and so everybody needs to get on board, and this needs to be pushed forward. I'll talk a little bit about the advantages that these technologies offer. The first, most obvious, is efficiency. Everybody wants to be more efficient. These technologies are pushed forward as offering that efficiency, which they do. But some of the more subtle aspects of the benefits are the access to information that these technologies provide. One of the big problems in the field when things are done the old-fashioned way with pieces of paper is changes are made and people in the field don't know what those changes are. Using digital technology and live-time information, when changes are made, everybody knows what they are and they're implemented right away. Nobody starts out doing the wrong thing and then has to go back and do rework, which is one of the most expensive things in construction. And in that same vein, we can avoid problems. If we're building a digital model that incorporates all aspects of a project and all of the things around it, we can see conflicts and the way the new construction interfaces with existing infrastructure before we build it. Whereas oftentimes in the past, we begin construction and then we encounter a problem partway through, which again requires rework, it's expensive, it's time consuming, and it's certainly not the most efficient way to do work. And another big factor is safety. We have numerous people, historically, we've had numerous people on the ground around heavy equipment, checking grades, laying out construction, and, for example, in pipe trenches as well. You have guys down in a hole, checking grade, putting pipe in. Now, we have the opportunity to do all those things from in the cabs of machines. Takes those people out of harm's way, takes those people out of trenches, which eliminates one of the most dangerous aspects of construction, being trench collapses. And another thing it allows, which contributes to efficiency as well, is where it was impossible to do work during dark hours, during nighttime hours, without huge amounts of lighting. Now, we can take those people who are on foot out of the construction site. Only the machines are operating. It makes it much safer and gives the ability to be much more efficient. So, to briefly wrap up, I want to say that Cold Springs worked cooperatively with owners and agencies to implement these technologies, but a lot more can be done to help move this along and bring forward some of the small businesses that haven't engaged in this. Project design from inception to completion should be done in a way that complements the use of digital data. Specifications should be written and revised to allow technologies and foster their adoption and use. These actions are only of benefit to agencies and taxpayers as they allow projects to be completed more accurately, more timely, and more cost-effectively. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next we will hear from Mr. Shepard.
Thank you, and good morning, Chairman Golden and Ranking Member Stauber. My name is Chris Shepard, and I'm a Vice President at Trimble. I've been with the company for 21 years, and as you can probably tell from my accent, I'm based in Dayton, Ohio. Trimble is a global technology company. I am an American citizen, don't worry. Focus on transforming the way work is done through the use of intelligent integrated technologies and innovative solutions. Trimble innovation enables economic breakthroughs while enhancing safety, increasing productivity, and reducing environmental impact. Our software, hardware, and services are transforming industries such as agriculture, construction, and transportation and logistics. As my colleagues have already mentioned, the construction industry is ripe for innovation, and we're talking about a $10 trillion global industry. McKinsey were referenced earlier a couple of times. You know, their estimate is that about 10 to 15% of that $10 trillion industry is waste. That's a lot of money. And the industry has historically used size and scale to do its work. Bigger machines, more people, more nails, more cement, more tools. And this reliance on scale creates a major disadvantage for small businesses who don't have the capital or volume of work to be able to absorb these inefficiencies. Today, ineffective planning, communication, and collaboration cause the most problems and drive up project costs. The use of digital construction technologies provides small businesses with the information they need to better manage their costs, schedules, and resources, and levels the playing field so that they compete with their larger rivals. A few examples of digital construction technologies would include application software and modeling that allows contractors to remotely monitor site progress from their office and create design models that can be sent to their machine operators and crews in real time. Machine control and guidance systems that provide machine operators real-time positioning for guidance and control of their machines, allowing them to accurately grade, compact, and pave to specification. And site positioning systems allow contractors to measure, check, manage, and inspect all the phases of their earthworks and paving operations. When these technologies are used on infrastructure projects, the results are significant and measurable. Machine productivity increases by 30%. Rework can be reduced by up to 50%. And overall project delivery costs are improved by up to 30%. And technology doesn't just increase the bottom line, it also improves environmental sustainability by reducing the use of fuel and the loss of resources to waste. Small businesses are the lifeblood of the construction industry, and technology is allowing them to compete against the larger players in the industry. I'd like to highlight just a couple of examples of small businesses that are achieving success using Trimble technology. First of all, Mr. Chairman, in your home state of Maine, the Shaw Brothers of Gorham, Maine, are using GPS machine control systems to improve the efficiency and quality of their work, which has generated savings in project times and overall costs. And on larger jobs, the state DOT will sometimes use Shaw Brothers 3D files to inspect and keep a record of the work that's been done, making the DOT's work more efficient too. Second example, Ajax Paving in Detroit, Michigan. Ajax Paving was able to keep a machine moving through dense fog while paving a highway project in northern Michigan, preventing a shutdown that would have wasted 200 feet of concrete that had already been dumped in front of the paver. Our 50 state DOTs have a high level of awareness of the benefits of digital construction. However, investments in these capabilities compete for scarce resources with much-needed infrastructure projects in each state, which has in many cases limited the pace and scope of adoption of the systems and capabilities which would support enhanced management and oversight of the projects themselves. Resources provided by the federal government would accelerate the advancement of these project delivery efficiency tools. Trimble supports a provision in the Senate Infrastructure Bill which creates incentives for states to upgrade the technical skills of the engineers and technicians who we all count on to enable digital construction delivery. This will result in safer roads, better life cycle costs, and less disruptions to commerce in communities across America. Small businesses will also benefit from states adopting the use of 3D models through the construction life cycle, as it allows them to fully realize the benefits from their investments in digital construction technologies. So in conclusion, I'd say the construction industry is often criticized for its inefficiency and waste. But today, we have the technology to ensure that projects are delivered on time and on budget. Increasing the adoption of digital construction technologies not only leads to better quality infrastructure delivered at a lower cost and with less environmental impact, but it also levels the playing field for smaller contractors to compete with the larger players in their industries and to grow their businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And in closing, we'll give the last 5 minutes to Mr. Ogilvy.
Hi, everybody. Thanks. First of all, thanks for the opportunity. Very much appreciate it. Appreciate the kind words at the opening as well. I've got a fair amount to say, so I tend to talk fairly quickly, and it's going to take that to get through this in 5 minutes. Yeah, my background is in construction. I was a contractor in the very early days. I've started now 2 significant technology businesses, Stack being the most recent, and we have thousands of customers worldwide. Our customers are small businesses, so fundamentally, I love the direction of the whole hearing today. This is about our customers. That's who we're talking about here. So I've got some words about why pay attention to me. Much of that's already been covered. You know, the construction industry represents 6% of the global GDP worldwide. Construction is the single largest consumer of raw materials worldwide as well. You know, one of the big challenges, as I was doing research for this, it was very interesting to find people are moving into urban areas at a very, very rapid pace, and it's creating a huge demand for infrastructure worldwide, not only in the U.S., but worldwide. In fact, the UN estimates that by 2050, there could be as many as 7 billion people living in urban areas. That would be up from 3.5 billion people today. Autodesk, the world's leader in design software, in fact, estimates that that could create a demand for as many as 1,000 new buildings per day over the next coming decades just to meet the demand for infrastructure worldwide. This continuing trend requires a massive amount of new construction and renovations to be done. U.S. construction spending in 2017 topped $1.27 trillion. It's expected to reach $1.5 trillion by 2023. The bigger problem here is the industry can't keep up. Candidly, the current pace of construction productivity cannot begin to keep up. There have been studies already referenced. Productivity gains across the industries outside of construction have exceeded 10 or 15 times or more. The actual productivity level of construction has dropped over the last 80 years. A big part of that is the complexity of the projects, but the failure to adopt technology is also a drain on the system. We also have an enormous labor shortage. So while we can't affect that personally with technology, I couldn't go through this process without at least addressing the labor shortage. But there is a high failure rate of construction startups as well that is also a problem within our industry. Again, we focus on the small businesses. Candidly, and I was shocked at this statistic, if you start a new construction company in the U.S. today, 25% of you will be out of business next year, within 12 months. 74% of all new businesses started in construction today will be out of business within 5 years. One big simple drain on this is, or cause, if you will, is poor adoption of new technology. There's a tremendous amount of very powerful technology available today, but candidly, the construction industry adopts technology at a very slow pace. If you look at studies that have been done across all industries, construction is at the very bottom in terms of the adoption rate of new technology. Digitization, adopting new technology, is the answer that we can bring to the table today. There's been a study, the World Economic Forum did a study that predicts an increase in savings and cost savings as much as 20% by full digitization of our industry as an impact. Globally, this could unlock as much as $1.2 trillion in costs. I have a couple of asks for the committee today. One is obviously to find creative ways to help the industry adopt new technology at a much faster pace. Consider mandating the use of technology on government-funded projects, and not just at the general contractor level, but push that all the way down to the subcontractor level. And then my last ask is interesting, is consider directly impacting adoption for contractors by extending grants to construction technology providers such as ourselves that we can use to subsidize the cost for the smallest companies who need to make that move into technology. Thanks again very much.
Well, thank you all very much for the testimony that you've shared with us today. I'm going to very quickly go a little bit out of order just because I wanted to point out that my wonderful wife, Isabel, is visiting. She's sitting over here, just snuck in once we got started. So she's here to make sure I'm on my best behavior during the Q&A. So I thought one of the first things I would ask, just to go ahead and go right at one of the more potential political questions that you might expect someone to ask when talking about, going digital, talking about automation and other things. Always, there is a real fear out there about the replacement of middle class, good blue collar construction jobs and others. I think Mr. Anderson, you kind of directly said it in a positive light, where you said the very latest technology will enable fewer people to do more and achieve a higher quality outcome. Of course, there are some people who might fear that this could pick winners and losers out there in the construction industry, and I just wanted to give, I thought, Mr. Anderson and maybe Mr. Forstel an opportunity to talk about this, because obviously, like you said, you're a family business. You want to take care of your entire family, and I know you all want to keep people working. So just your thoughts in general about those who might have concerns about job loss.
If you look at the need of infrastructure in this country, I think we need to become much more efficient, because I think if you look at New York City, I think there's a huge issue because the cost overruns traditionally makes it hard to make new initiatives. We need new tunnels. We need so much in New York City. But I think because of all these cost overruns, there's been issues. So that will actually hurt the industry. And I think the efficiency, we can do much more to a higher quality. So that's.
Well, I think to reference what Mr. Ogilvy said, there's a huge shortage of tradespeople for the construction industry in this country. I mean, it's widely acknowledged by the Associated General Contractors of America that construction employment is a real problem in terms of companies finding good workers. And I think that the one point that Mr. Anderson made about the technology reducing the number of people because of the increase in efficiency, which we need to see in the industry for many reasons, is a big deal. But I think it's also an opportunity to attract more members of the younger generations into the industry. They don't want to dig ditches with shovels. They want to be involved in something interesting and engaging. And this technology, a lot of these technologies offer that opportunity for the younger generations who are used to engaging in those technologies, or technologies similar to what we're using in the construction industry. So I think it provides real opportunity not to exclude people who want to be, who might want jobs, but actually include.
Do you think your workforce or potential future workforce is getting like the kind of training opportunities and exposure to the kind of competency in digital technologies or new equipment, more modern forward-leaning equipment?
No, I don't think the adequate training is out there. I think there's some movement to head in that direction, but we aren't seeing it yet. Yep. Hit our people in the field. So a lot of our training for that is once we hire people, but it is an opportunity. And I think it's an opportunity to take an industry that's been considered dusty and dirty and dangerous over the generations to be something that's really an opportunity. It's an opportunity for people to make a fantastic living doing really interesting work and really meaningful work. I mean, I know our people take enormous pride in traveling around Western New York and telling their kids about the projects they worked on.
Oh yeah, these are great jobs. I think a lot of people back home in Maine also take pride in their being a part of the construction industry. One of the things I love most about your testimony, sir, was talking about the distribution of information in the field and preventing rework. The Marine in me, they put a big emphasis on, if you don't get information out into the field, how can people make frontline decisions and not make mistakes? So this makes a lot of sense to me in terms of the digital stuff. Mr. Shepard, I want to give you, in the closing time I have here, an opportunity to field a question. As people were talking about the expenses of new equipment, automation, digital technology, and others, I was thinking about the Betty tax exemption programs for equipment that I became familiar with back home in Maine. If you know what I'm talking about, the Better Equipment tax exemption program, which I imagine would cost something like an automated bulldozer. But would it also include things like digital technology upgrades that would improve the efficiency in planning phase? Could a company write off those types of investments as well under that program?
Mr. Chairman, but if it doesn't, it ought to, right? Because Maybe do you
Mr.
know,
Anderson.
can you speak to it?
It actually does. We just bought this laser, $250,000 laser scanning equipment, and it's a write-off, and it made a huge difference for us. So
Very good.
Just to have a second, just to comment.
No, please.
I think what's important to build on what Leonard said in his opening remarks as well, we need to go from the beginning to the end of the process, right? We make systems that you can be used all the way throughout the process, but if you don't start with a digital beginning, a design, and then pull it all the way through, that's where you get the real advantage all the way through the
Thank you very
construction
much.
process.
I am out of time, so I'm going to go ahead and yield to Ranking Member Stauber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Your testimony, all of your parts of your testimony has been fascinating to me. You talk about digital technologies and where it's at. In my hometown of Hermantown, Minnesota, small town, we put up a health and wellness center, and that had to be bonded. And to make people understand what it was going to be like, you put the goggles on, you literally walked through the health and wellness center. It was amazing. And so you talk about the technologies you're putting forward. I think this is absolutely where it's at. There's a couple of questions, Mr. Shepard, for you first. I am aware that the Minnesota Department of Transportation and Trimble have worked together on intelligent compaction and a tool called e-routes. Could you expand on what these projects looked like and what came out as a result of the collaboration with MnDOT?
Yes, sorry about that. I had to press the button. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up because the Minnesota DOT now mandates the use of intelligent compaction on its projects, and what that does is that guarantees the quality of the finished product by knowing that you're compacting to the right specification every time that you do the compaction. So that's a use of technology on the compaction material, on the compaction equipment, the compactors, that can make the right number of passes at the right, and provide the right, I keep saying the word compaction, sorry, it's all about compaction. It gets the compaction correct without having to do any more rework or guessing or missing spots in the place. So it really gets the quality done the first time accurately, and you can be assured that it's okay.
Which maximizes the investment.
Well, it improves dramatically the quality of the finished product, the road or the pad or whatever it is. You get it built right to the design, and there's no guesswork.
I just want to put a plug in for the Minnesota Department of Transportation. I was the chair of Public Works and Transportation for our county, and I am extremely proud of that relationship the counties and MnDOT have built to maximize that investment using these new technologies. Very critical. Another question I have, in March, this is for Mr. Ogilvie. In March, I introduced H.R. 1890, the Preserving America's Infrastructure Dollars, the PAID Act, which would require states to conduct a life cycle cost analysis on infrastructure projects that use more than $30 million in federal funds. How do digital technologies reduce life cycle costs for larger infrastructure projects?
Yeah, that's a great. Push the button. It's a great question. From the infrastructure standpoint, I'm not confident that I can answer correctly.
Can anybody answer that? Go ahead, Mr. Anderson, and then Mr. Ogilvie, you can finish your sentence.
Sure, thanks.
So we work with MTA Bridges and Tunnels in New York City. A lot of existing facilities, the vast majority is nine facilities. And there we are actually scanning and modeling all the existing facilities. And then the asset management piece is a huge sort of unknown as far as I think their budget is $2 billion the next 3 years just to maintain these facilities. And we found multiple steps of inefficiencies. They can't find the records or how to maintain this because people move much more in the workplace than they used to. So you don't have the guy that worked there for 30 years that know where these things is. So we're digitizing everything so you can actually quickly find a piece of equipment. And we're talking millions in savings every year, just alone, just to find things and know what to do so you can fix something quickly. So.
Thank you. Mr. Ogilvie, finish. Thank you.
Yeah, no. And actually, I wanted to touch on something Mr. Golden brought up earlier, which was around the workforce. And so just some stats that I had dug out. There were 300,000, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, 300,000 vacancies in the construction industry in June of this year. expected to climb to 757,000 by 2026. So, yeah, there's more labor needed dramatically, and I wouldn't place that as a concern around
Okay, thank you.
technology adoption at all.
Interesting. Mr. Forstill, with your company, it sounds like very well respected, fourth generation. Can you tell us, give us an approximate amount that your company invests per year in digital technology to stay competitive? Just a rough estimate.
It's varied some. We were fortunate to be an early adopter when we had a lot of work that the technology was applicable to. But I would say on average, the technology across the board, we're investing 5%
Okay.
of sales in technology.
That's two and a half times the industry average, so.
Yeah, but
That's 2.5 times the industry average, okay.
but we're seeing, at the same time, we're seeing enormous returns on that.
Right.
I mean, very, very fast return on investment, and then everything above and beyond that ROI is
Right.
profit or being able to bid projects at a lower price and procure more work and do it more cost effectively for the owners.
I think you mentioned in your testimony that small businesses cannot afford not to invest in this technology just to stay competitive. And Mr. Ogilvy, you talked about this, I couldn't believe this stat, but 1 out of 4 construction startups will be out of business in 1 year.
Yeah, that's correct, and it's really stunning, and we see it. I mean, these are our customers, and so we see it, unfortunately, but that's the case today.
Right.
One thing I'd like to just add on to, I think it was Mr. Golden asked about the current tax breaks that are in place. I think most of that we find is around hardware and equipment. So just from the pure technology standpoint, I don't think there's much out there available today.
Okay. Thank you very much.
We would now recognize Mr. Hagedorn from Minnesota's 1st Congressional District.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to defer to our ranking member, Chavit, if you like. You sure? Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it. I take it that this technology, this digital technology, helps you be more precise. Would that make some sense? And your planning, reduce costs, things like that. Certainly could be an advantage if you're bidding on contracts. You're probably going to be viewed as the team that's going to maybe have the best deal, or at least be the closest to the end. So, Mr. Forstill, what's your experience? How much can you save in these areas? How important is it to be efficient by using this type of technology?
It depends somewhat on the type of project. Some projects, it's easier to leverage the technology for cost savings than others. We were fortunate.
Give us an example of a different type of project.
So big earthwork projects are sort of the natural fit for the automated machine guidance type work where you're moving huge quantities of dirt. You can move it more quickly because everybody who's working on the site in a machine knows when they're getting close to what the finished product needs to be. They're not getting somewhere in the ballpark and then the survey crew has to come out and check grades again. They're grading to the finished grade and they're done. So that's where some of the biggest efficiencies lie. I gave an example in my written testimony of roadway grading where the efficiency has improved in the neighborhood of 500% with automated machine guidance. And so on long expressway type projects that are new construction or full reconstruction, the savings are astronomical. And initially we were fortunate because not knowing what those savings were going to be, we realized a lot of those as profits, which allowed us to cover our costs of implementing the technology early. Now we're competing against more contractors who are sharing in the same advantages. So now those savings are being passed on to the agencies and ultimately the taxpayers.
That's good. Is it considered now the industry standard that you have to do this, or are states requiring it to make bids?
There aren't requirements. There have been more more changes in the specifications to allow it. Initially, we saw resistance from a lot of the agencies because it was just uncharted territory. They didn't have the same reference points to look at that they used to, oftentimes being stakes in the ground. Now it was all information on a computer screen, so they had trouble adjusting to that. But we're getting there in terms of allowing it. I think now it needs to be encouraged or required.
Now you're kind of proving the technology a little bit, and they see the benefits. So, Mr. Oglesby, you talk about workforce issues, and I happen to be somebody that's agrees with you 100%, that for a long time in this country, we almost discouraged people from getting into vocational trades, certificate programs, skilled labor, told them if you didn't go to a four-year college, you're just not going to amount to anything. That turned out to be not such a good thing. And now we're trying to get folks to the point where they have choice, and whatever they choose to do, whatever it's in their heart, they should be fostered and enabled to do that. Piece of legislation that I've introduced with Congressman Van Drew of New Jersey. It's a bipartisan. It's called the American Workforce Empowerment Act, and it would make it so these 529 education savings accounts could be applied to certificate programs, apprenticeships, skilled labor type fields, the purchase of tools and equipment. Is that the type of legislation that you might be able to help us?
Oh, that's fabulous. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's fabulous. Yeah, 100%. There's been a stigma around it. I mean, we've alluded to it. If you talked, my friend from the AGC, I'm sure would confirm. I mean, it's probably, aside from the adoption technology, we have an enormous lever with technology where we can really drive efficiency, and this committee is doing the right thing. But on the labor side, it's the single number one biggest problem and challenge for the construction industry as a whole today, without question.
Anyone else have a comment on the skilled workforce issue? You pretty much agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're testing in New York actually the apprenticeship model of sort of reverse mentoring. It's sort of a generational thing. The kids grow up, they just run with this technology. But the people that have really experienced are not so familiar with it. So teaming a young person up with an experienced, and we've seen some really interesting results on that.
Thank you. That's HR 4469. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for that. One thing I'll add is that, technology can be a carrot here as well, right? For for getting new people to want to move into the industry, the more we adopt technology as an industry, I think the more attractive it becomes to young people. And a couple other fellows made that comment as well. So,
Thanks very much. I yield back.
Thank you very much. We will now call upon the full committee ranking member, Congressman Shabbat from Ohio's 1st Congressional District.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Oglesby, I'll go to you if I can. Welcome. Again, I understand my colleague from Minnesota introduced you. I hope to be over here, but unfortunately around this place, things always come up and change
no
plans.
worries. No worries.
The best
Thank you
laid
very much.
plan, but it's great to have you here as well as it is the other witnesses. And your company, Stack, has experienced really incredible growth in a relatively short period of time. Could you talk about the types of financing that you've secured to facilitate that growth? And I know you talked about going to, I think, 20 different cities and being told no by various venture
Oh,
capitalists.
you've done some research.
Yeah. So what, if you wanted to talk about that perhaps, and also what availability did you find in our community in Cincinnati that you found helpful in growing your business?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, my story goes back probably, 2 decades now. So when I started I Square Foot, which was my last startup, now employs more than 1,000 people. It's known as Construct Connect, still based there in Cincinnati. A lot of those war stories around raising money and traveling around the country. Finally found an angel investor in Cincinnati to help us fund that business and get it off the ground.
What would you say America's greatest city is again?
That would be Cincinnati.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. No, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Shabbat. And by the way, the state of Ohio was very helpful with additional financing to get our very young business off the ground 2 years ago or 3 years
Greatest
ago.
city in the greatest state, I'm just saying. But go ahead.
Goes to the University of Cincinnati, so
Oh,
I just like to
excellent.
jump on.
Yeah, excellent. Our daughter's a graduate of the DAP program there, and my wife's a graduate there as well. So, yeah, great school. In a great city. No, go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. I could expand, but
Yeah. So anyway, on the financing and
Yes.
Cincinnati and how you went through this process?
Sure. So, well, very early on, again, I literally traveled the country. There was some resistance. Everybody I met with, it seemed like, told me this was the greatest idea. They couldn't believe nobody was doing it already. I was in San Francisco many times, New York, Chicago many times. And at the end of the day, I was able to secure angel financing in Cincinnati, and we had a very friendly angel who helped us to continue that business even when we were still hearing no locally. We did finally secure financing from a local Cincinnati venture firm in River City's capital, and Chrysalis Ventures out of Louisville. And that was my last startup. Today we have funding out of the state of New York, the great state of New York, with Level Equity. But it's all money very well invested, and driving technology into this industry is not for the faint of heart. But it's been a very rewarding experience as well. I love hearing the stories about the impact of technology. We literally have hundreds and hundreds of testimonials from customers who tell us how it's impacted their business and their family lives and the impact of their family, of their employees, and it's just very gratifying. So this is near and dear to my heart, what you folks are putting together here, the concept.
Thank you. And it's my understanding that STACK provides colleges and universities with free access to its pre-construction tools. How do these partnerships help with industry workforce development, and what impact has that had on your business?
It's something we've debated through the years. It's being a relatively small business still today. We don't always feel like we have the resources we need to do that. But it's been a tremendous program. So we do that, as you've explained. We offer free technology. Our solution is free for universities, and it's been a powerful thing for the ones who've adopted it. And obviously, the goal being we want to seed the market with experienced operators of the technology as they go to the end of the workplace.
Okay, very good. And then finally, how do platforms like STACK integrate with other tools that are offered by other companies? How do businesses learn how to fully utilize these tools? Yeah,
that's a great question. I mean, training is a whole other issue, and training is getting easier and easier with the modern tools and the modern design. Training today is not nearly what it was 25 years ago with desktop software solutions. So training is less and less of a challenge for us every day. But one of the things that we do focus on is integrating with other platforms. So we're not everything to everybody, and we don't intend to be, and I think most solutions are the same. So we see a tremendous amount of value in integrating. So we have an API behind our platform that is really a set of hooks that other software can use to pull and push data in and out of our platform. I know Trimble has the same sort of things, and it's becoming more and more common in the industry to do that. But I think ultimately success and widespread adoption across the industry of technology is really going to require that kind of interconnectivity between apps.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, my time's expired. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to Congressman Balderson, also of Ohio, and ranking member of the Subcommittee on Innovation and Workforce Development.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, panel, for being here today. And I've never talked this much about Ohio in a long time, have we? So I'm glad to hear that we all agree. And this question is broad for the whole panel, so anybody can go in any particular area you would like to go. But I want to thank you again all for being here today. And I sit on this committee and also the T&I committee, like our ranking member, Representative Stauber, also sit on the T&I committee. So I know how critical it is to fix our nation's crumbling infrastructure. In your written testimonies, each of you highlighted the rate of adoption, or rather the lack of thereof, of new technologies by small construction businesses as well as the state departments of transportation. Would each of you share some of the reasons this is the case? And have there been any cases we can look at in which states or small businesses have done a good job of adopting innovative technologies? And as I said, you all made this, whoever was ready to go right ahead.
Yeah, one of the issues we're finding, the rate of adoption, I've been at this for 20 years now, is that a lot of the standards and requirements are outdated. So when you get a project from an agency, it says you're supposed to use CAD 2D drawings to submit a piece of paper in the end. So the effect that you have to maintain a legacy system and innovate on a new side becomes very expensive. So it would be much better if agency starts mandating these new technologies, and then you can actually make the transition without maintaining the old system. So, if you...
If I can just add, as a representing a manufacturer that develops these tools, the software, the hardware, et cetera, I'd back up what Leonard says. We don't want people to mandate our specific products. I don't want the world to be mandated to be Trimble products. That would be nice, but that's not what's needed. We're happy to work with everybody to increase the adoption broadly, and then all boats rise on the tide, and we'll take our chances individually as which consumer prefers the right solution. But and we work collaboratively with people that we compete with in the marketplace every day to try and find innovative ways to increase adoption so that we can gain all these efficiencies that we've all testified to today. So we're happy to do that. It's really about seeding the mindset to ease the adoption.
Would anybody else like to add? If not,
Sure.
my follow-up, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I can add a little bit from the construction industry side in terms of resistance to adoption. I think it's been alluded to some today, but our industry is old school. Guys who start construction companies like to buy their iron, their equipment, and technology doesn't necessarily fit the same mold. So I remember when we were getting into it, my father was questioning the expense of investing in the technology. He said, well, that stuff doesn't move dirt or put pavement on the ground. Well, no, it doesn't, but it helps you do it a lot faster and a lot more accurately and a lot more efficiently. So it's getting over the hump for some people of understanding exactly what it does and how much it does benefit, and that it's not exactly getting the work done, but it's helping you get the work done so much more efficiently. And that's that's just what I've seen in the industry and through personal experience in terms of being an impediment to adoption, is just that perception that it's not, the nuts and bolts stuff that we've always done.
Okay, thank you for your answer, all of you. My follow-up, and we have brief time here left. To the best of your knowledge, are there federal regulations preventing these type of systems or technologies from being adopted?
I can name one off the top of my head.
Well, one's
For-
one, so.
For FAA work, paving on airports, where the owner of the project is the FAA, they mandate paving with string lines. That's their specification. And there's been some success by us and others to convince them in certain instances to be able to use machine automation, which in paving, whether it's blacktop or concrete, is way more efficient. And especially in the tight time frames that are often required for airport work, that's a big deal. And it's just an antiquated specification that doesn't allow for new technology.
Thank you very much, Mr. Panel. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you all very much. I'm going to go ahead and do another round. I don't know if there are other members who might be interested. So, one thing, talking about the workforce training opportunities, and it sounds like you're doing a little bit of this, Mr. Ogilvy. In Maine, when I was in the Maine legislature, we went ahead and put a little bit of state money into a training program working in the logging industry, where we do see a lot of technological advancement in the equipment, but it's very expensive to have. Hard for a community college or training program, apprenticeship program to purchase $500,000 pieces of equipment or more. So really we're having a hard time getting youth opportunities to get trained with that equipment, which then made it harder to hire them because you're dealing with a pretty expensive piece of machinery that requires extra training. So the industry actually was willing to kick in some of that equipment so that we didn't have to purchase it. And now we had like a nice public-private partnership where our young loggers were able to get in and get enough hours working new equipment so that they were entering into the workforce not just trained on one piece of equipment, which was kind of the industry standard, but on multiple pieces of equipment. Now they had a more dynamic, more flexible workforce and more likely to be hired more quickly into the job site and be more valuable. If a piece of equipment went down, they could just hop on another one. So just, I don't know if you all have seen anything like that, but even with the digitization side of things, helping to pool resources for training opportunities, I think, is a big part of getting a trained and ready workforce. I did want to ask if any of you have anything to say about potentials around 3D printing in the construction industry. The University of Maine Advanced Structures and Composite Center, I just have to brag about, they now have the largest 3D printer in the world, and they're working with all kinds of neat stuff, hybrid manufacturing, 3D printing, using long fiber reinforced tapes. They're doing thermoplastics, bioresins, and other things. You can think about cross-laminated timber for the construction industry. They're making lightweight, tougher than steel axles, for equipment and other things. It seems to me like the sky's the limit, but I'm curious what you're seeing with 3D printing in the construction industry.
Can
Go ahead.
just a quick comment on that. We're a partner in a venture fund which is led by the Holt family, who own the Caterpillar dealership in Texas. It's a broad fund that's focused on construction technology, and they closed 3 or 4 months ago. We had the first meeting a couple of weeks ago, and one of the businesses they're looking at is a business that can actually 3D print homes, like 1,200 square foot homes. No, it's remarkable, and they're focused on affordable housing, where you can go into plots of land in underprivileged areas and put it. These are really affordable, properly built, durable homes, and it's a startup out of Texas that's doing that. There's a whole bunch of, there's an explosion in this area of, it's really where, one of my soapboxes is this is the fusion of what you call just normal manufacturing principles and technology brought to the construction space. This is how people have been building cars, cutting metal chips all across the Midwest for years, and now we're applying these principles, and 3D printing is no more than taking a CAD file and putting it on a lathe or a machine a CNC machine that cuts metal to print a house the same way. Just one quick comment on your education, Mr. Chairman. We work, and it ties two things together about the job loss or the fear of job loss. We actually work very closely with the unions. We have a collaboration, a partnership with the International Union of Operating Engineers, where we use their facilities, we donate equipment, and we bring customers to train. We train, the union loves it because they can upskill their people. We love their facilities, and we can use their space and their equipment to show our customers and showcase. And it's been a very symbiotic relationship where they get something out of it, we get something out of it too, and it helps the workforce.
That's great. No, thank you very much. The 3D printing aspect, I find very interesting. They just did like I said, largest 3D printer in the world for now. I think we're going to continue to see, advancement, but I think they did a 30 or 40-foot boat in under 72 hours. If you stop and think about that, it's pretty amazing. They started it up on a Friday and came back in to a finished. It does float, yes. I actually got into it.
Mr. Chair, I'll let you know my staffer asked the question. I didn't.
Yeah, that's right. So more to come on that. And thanks for sharing the training partnership with the operating engineers. Go ahead, Mr. Silver.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if Ranking Member Shabbat were here, I'd ask him to have a conversation about which state is better, because I'll take Minnesota any day. I've got a couple of comments. First of all, thanks for your expertise in sharing this with us. I think that by using digitalized technologies, we can save money. That's the investment from the taxpayers. projects, the life cycle can be longer because of for instance, the compaction is perfect. And then one of the things that we talk about is the safety. Mr. Forrestal, you talked about working at night, the safety of the men and women that are putting these projects together. It's critically important that we invest in these, and I'm excited. Mr. Forrestal, you had mentioned the FAA mandates paving with string lines. I'm on the aviation subcommittee, and I turned to the chair and my staff are here. I said, this is something that we can implement in the RFPs. My hometown airport of Duluth, Minnesota just did a complete paving of the runway 927. And if that saves the taxpayer money and does it quicker, because it's also our F-16 base. And so it's just these are some things that you as experts can bring to us that we can help change and do things better, more efficient, maximize the taxpayer's investment. So I really appreciate your comments and considerations today. Thank you for your time. I hope you felt it was valuable, because I know we did. And to Chair, thanks for putting this together. These are the type of really nonpartisan or bipartisan things that we in Congress can do to help small business succeed. So thank you, Chair Goldman.
Of course, always a pleasure to work with you. I would say as well, Mr. Anderson, you were talking about having to have two different platforms, your old drawings and sketches, and then also having the 3D option, and it makes me think of the need to invest in a advanced workforce within government as well, whether that be DOT or other agencies and department at the federal and state level. If we're not investing in a workforce who is able to keep up with the private sector, then it will inevitably hold us back. And we all know the large role that government plays in regards to the procurement of services, many of which you provide either in construction, particularly with roads and bridges and others. So we got to be looking to that as well. And I'm interested in the FAA piece as well, Mr. Stalber. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. Please feel free to send us more info if you have it, or if you think you wanted to add in more, or you didn't get some of the questions that you really wanted to answer, let us know. We're happy to have that information. And, I think it's been a worthy hearing where we've learned a little bit about how digital construction tools can help our small businesses find opportunities to cut costs and compete for more business. Nimble small businesses need a level playing field to contribute cost-saving services as we begin to spend federal dollars to improve our nation's infrastructure. But small businesses can't unlock these opportunities if they fail to adopt cost-saving equipment, which is why the members of this committee are looking to raise awareness of the value of digital tools and encourage small businesses to actively adopt them in construction, design, and engineering. I look forward to working on this issue with the ranking member and members of the subcommittee and committee. Some of you had some ideas on how we could incentivize some of these things, and we'll be looking back at your testimony and advice. So thank you for joining us today, and I would go ahead and ask unanimous consent that members have 5 legislative days to submit statements and supporting materials for the record without objection, so ordered. And if there's no further business to come before the committee, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, gentlemen.